Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Mason Hayes again, and today I want to completely change the way you think about your body's relationship with time and fuel, because here is something almost nobody understands about fasting. Most people believe fasting is a single event. You stop eating, you feel hungry, you wait, you eat again, one flat, uncomfortable experience from beginning to end. But that is not what fasting is at all. Fasting is not one thing, it is a sequence, a precisely ordered biological progression that unfolds in distinct stages, each one governed by different hormones, different fuel sources, and different repair systems switching on at different hours. And the reason most people never benefit from fasting the way they could is that they quit somewhere in the first stage, long before the more powerful stages ever have a chance to begin. Think of it this way. Imagine you are watching a symphony, but you leave after the first 30 seconds of the opening notes. You would walk away convinced that the entire piece was nothing but a few scattered instruments tuning up. You would never hear the movements that follow, the layers that build, the moment where every section comes together into something extraordinary. That is exactly what happens when people judge fasting by the first hungry hour. They hear the tuning up, and they assume that is the whole symphony. But the real music, the real biology, the transformation your body is capable of, only reveals itself as the hours progress and each new stage arrives on schedule, because here is what fasting actually is at the biological level. It is your body moving through a carefully sequenced series of metabolic gears. When you are eating regularly, your body is stuck in first gear, running entirely on incoming food, never shifting up, never accessing the deeper systems that only engage when food stops arriving. Fasting is what allows the body to shift through the gears one by one, and each gear unlocks something the previous one could not: fat burning, ketone production, cellular cleanup, muscle preservation, immune renewal. These are not things that happen all at once. They arrive in order, hour by hour, in a progression so precise that once you understand it, you will never look at hunger the same way again. So today I am going to walk you through the 7 stages of fasting, from 8 hours all the way to 72 hours. What is happening inside your body at each stage, why hunger arrives in waves and then fades rather than escalating endlessly, why your brain often works better as the hours pass rather than worse, why muscle is protected rather than sacrificed, and why the single most important insight about fasting is not how long you push, but how reliably you allow your body to move through these stages in the first place. Before we begin, I have one request. Watch this video all the way to the end, because I have loaded every single stage with the real physiology that most fasting content online completely misrepresents, and the practical guardrails I share at the very end are what separate fasting that genuinely heals from fasting that quietly harms. And if you are new to my channel, please subscribe right now, because this is exactly the kind of science-based, honest health education I deliver consistently through my lectures every single week. Also, if you are interested in my ebook on visceral fat, which distills 2 full decades of my clinical experience with fasting and metabolism into under 100 pages, you will find the link waiting for you in the pinned comment below this video. Now let us begin with stage 1, 8 hours after your last meal. At 8 hours, you are not yet in what most people would call a fast, but something quietly significant is already beginning. The fed state, that comfortable window after eating, when insulin is elevated and your body is happily running on the glucose from your last meal, is starting to wind down. Digestion is largely complete, blood sugar is stabilizing, and insulin, which has been elevated since the moment you ate, is beginning its very first meaningful decline of the entire fasting sequence. Think of this stage as your body beginning to shift out of first gear. You are still moving on the fuel you just took in, but the engine is preparing to change gears, and to prepare, the body begins running quiet preliminary checks on its deeper systems. It starts examining whether it is ready to access stored energy, whether the pathways are clear, whether the machinery of fat mobilization is prepared to engage if food does not arrive. At 8 hours, the liver begins drawing more actively on its glycogen reserves. Glycogen is stored glucose, essentially your body's short-term energy buffer. Picture it as a small reserve tank that sits between the main fuel line and the deeper reserves. When incoming food tapers off, this reserve tank supplies the gap, releasing glucose steadily into the bloodstream to keep blood sugar stable, particularly for the brain, which at this early stage still runs almost entirely on glucose. And this is exactly when ghrelin, the hunger hormone, rises for the first time in this window. Here is where most people make their very first and most costly mistake. They feel this wave of hunger, interpret it as their body sounding an alarm, and they immediately eat. But ghrelin does not rise and rise endlessly. It rises in a predictable wave that peaks and then falls within roughly 45 minutes to an hour, whether or not you eat anything at all. Ghrelin is conditioned by habit. If you normally eat at this time, ghrelin rises right on schedule, like a doorbell ringing at the expected hour. It is not an emergency, it is a question your body is politely asking. Are we eating now? And when the answer is no, the wave subsides, ghrelin quiets, and the transition simply continues. Nothing dangerous is happening at 8 hours. Your body is calmly beginning its shift from external fuel toward internal reserves. The gears are just starting to turn. Now, stage 2, the first 12 hours after your last meal. This is the first genuinely important milestone of any fast, and it is also a milestone that most people quietly reach every single night, provided they stop eating a few hours before bed and do not eat the instant they wake. 12 hours is where the shift out of first gear becomes real, rather than merely preparatory. By 12 hours, liver glycogen is substantially depleted, that short-term reserve tank is running low, and now the body receives a clear signal. External fuel is not coming, and stored internal reserves must be accessed. Insulin has now dropped meaningfully from its post-meal peak, and this insulin decline is the single most important event of this entire stage, because insulin is the lock on your fat stores. While insulin is elevated, your fat cells simply cannot release their stored energy into circulation. The enzyme responsible for unlocking fat cells is suppressed as long as insulin stays high, but when insulin falls, that suppression lifts, the lock finally opens, and the body shifts into the next gear. Fat oxidation begins climbing measurably at 12 hours. Fatty acids start flowing out of fat tissue into the bloodstream. The liver begins converting some of those fatty acids into ketones. Ketone levels here are still low but rising, like an engine that has just caught and begun to run smoothly for the first time. Growth hormone also begins its first significant rise during this window, and this is the fact that destroys the most persistent fear about fasting, the fear of muscle loss. Growth hormone is the body's primary muscle preservation signal. It tells every tissue in the body, protect the lean mass, burn the fat instead. Its rise at 12 hours is not accidental. It is the body's intelligent response to the fuel shift, protecting what is valuable while burning what was stored for exactly this purpose. Muscle is metabolically expensive and precious, and the body has no interest in sacrificing it while abundant fat is available. Autophagy, your body's internal cellular cleanup system, also begins its first meaningful activation around 12 hours. Think of autophagy as a maintenance crew that only gets called in when the building quiets down. While insulin is high and nutrients are flooding in, the crew is told to stay away because there is simply too much activity. But when insulin falls and nutrients grow scarce, the crew finally receives the call. At 12 hours they are just arriving, switching on the lights in the maintenance corridors, beginning their preliminary sweep. Not the deep clean yet, but the work has genuinely begun. If you are still here with me, go ahead and comment below the longest fast you have ever completed. I am genuinely curious how many of you have already moved through some of these stages without ever knowing the biology behind what you are experiencing. Now, stage 3, 16 hours after your last meal. 16 hours is where fasting stops being a transition and becomes a genuine state. This is the window that intermittent fasting protocols are built around. The popular 16 and 8 model, 16 hours fasting and 8 hours eating, is designed around this exact stage because 16 hours is where several of the most practically valuable metabolic benefits become clearly and simultaneously active. By 16 hours, insulin has reached its lowest point since your previous meal. The fat unlocking machinery is fully active. Fat cells are releasing fatty acids steadily. The liver is converting them into ketones at an accelerating rate, and ketone levels, which were only trace amounts at 12 hours, have now risen to a point where they are making a genuine contribution to fueling the brain. And this is where something remarkable happens to hunger. Most people expect hunger to grow steadily worse the longer they fast. But instead, right around the 14 to 16 hour mark, hunger frequently quiets, sometimes dramatically. The ghrelin waves that were arriving so predictably in the early hours become less frequent and far less urgent. The reason is ketones. Ketones directly suppress ghrelin. They signal the brain through multiple pathways that the body has plenty of fuel available and that eating is simply not urgent. This is the exact moment where a first-time faster suddenly realizes that hunger was never a rising emergency at all. It was a hormonal wave that rises and falls, and once ketones climb high enough, those waves soften into something gentle and entirely manageable. The brain at 16 hours is now receiving a meaningful share of its energy from ketones, alongside the glucose the liver still produces. And here is what surprises people most. The brain often functions differently on ketones, and in several specific ways better. Ketones produce less oxidative stress as they burn than glucose does. They stabilize the firing patterns of neurons. They quiet the excess excitatory activity that creates mental noise, restlessness, and reactivity. The calm focus and mental clarity people describe at this stage is not imagination, it is neurochemistry. The brain is simply running on cleaner fuel, with less metabolic static. For many people, this is the first time they experience what their mind feels like when it is no longer riding a blood sugar roller coaster of spikes and crashes. The cellular energy sensor is now fully activated as well, coordinating mitochondrial efficiency, reducing inflammation, and organizing the deeper repair processes that later stages will amplify. The body is not struggling at 16 hours, it has fully made the shift, and it is running cleanly and efficiently. And if you are enjoying the science in today's lecture so far, please comment below the words "Yes, Doctor" to let me know you are finding real value in this session. Also, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on the bell icon, because I break down exactly this kind of genuine physiology every single week on this channel. Now, stage 4, 20 hours after your last meal. At 20 hours, the body has fully committed to internal fuel. There is no more hedging between food and reserves. The deeper systems are the only power source running now, and they have reached a steady, efficient operating state. Fat oxidation is high and stable. Ketones are supplying a substantial portion of the brain's total energy needs. Insulin is profoundly low, and visceral fat, that deep, dangerous abdominal fat wrapped around your organs, has become a preferred fuel source because of its rich blood supply and metabolic activity. This is the stage where people carrying visceral fat begin accessing it meaningfully. Remember, visceral fat is not passive storage sitting quietly. It is metabolically active tissue with abundant blood flow, which makes it highly responsive to the hormonal environment created here. Low insulin, active fat mobilization, elevated ketones. These conditions leave visceral fat metabolically exposed in a way that surface fat is not yet. The body targets its most dangerous fat depot first. And as visceral fat declines, its inflammatory output drops too, triggering a cascade of metabolic improvement that compounds with every subsequent fasting period you complete. Autophagy at 20 hours is meaningfully active and accelerating. The cleanup crew is no longer doing preliminary work. They are clearing genuine debris. Damaged proteins that were contributing to cellular dysfunction are being broken down and recycled. Dysfunctional mitochondria, the tiny power plants inside your cells, are being identified for replacement through a specialized process. Picture this as the crew specifically targeting the broken generators inside each cell, hauling out the inefficient ones so that when the cell eventually rebuilds, the replacements are cleaner and more capable than what came before. This is one of the core mechanisms behind the improved energy and metabolic function people report not just during the fast, but in the days and weeks that follow. By the way, comment below your regular fasting window timing. Do you prefer 16 and 8 or something different? I would love to know what works best for the people following this channel, and tell me about your movement too. Do you exercise while fasting, and at what intensity, or do you rest completely? Also, if you are enjoying this lecture, do check out my ebook on metabolic and visceral fat loss once we finish today. You will find the link in the top comment below. Now we arrive at stage 5, 24 hours after your last meal. 24 hours is where fasting transitions from a metabolic tool into a genuine cellular repair program, and I want to spend real time here because this stage represents something categorically different from everything that came before. The changes at 24 hours are not simply more of the same, they are entirely new layers of activity that only become possible once insulin has stayed low long enough to create the deep hormonal environment that true cellular repair requires. By 24 hours, insulin is at its absolute baseline, not trending down, settled, stable, profoundly low, and this sustained low insulin finally gives the body full permission to do the work it has been preparing for since the fat-burning systems first came online at 12 hours. Think of the first 12 hours as the building emptying out its daytime crowd, the next several hours as the maintenance team arriving and switching on the work lights, and 24 hours as the full deep clean crew entering every single room at once, with complete equipment and a total mandate to repair everything that has been accumulating damage. Autophagy at 24 hours is no longer subtle or selective, it is systemic and significant. Cells throughout your body are actively dismantling misfolded proteins that were driving inflammation and oxidative stress. Damaged cellular components are being disassembled and their raw materials recycled into fresh, functional replacements. Worn-out cells that had stopped working properly and were leaking inflammatory signals into surrounding tissue are being cleared more aggressively. The cellular environment at 24 hours is genuinely cleaner than it was when the fast began, not metaphorically, measurably. The selective removal of damaged mitochondria is proceeding meaningfully throughout this window, and this deserves special emphasis. Old, inefficient mitochondria that were leaking damaging byproducts and producing energy poorly are being tagged and broken down. When feeding resumes and the body rebuilds, newer, more efficient mitochondria take their place. The result is not just restored energy production, it is upgraded energy production. People who fast consistently at this depth report gains in physical energy, mental stamina, and metabolic flexibility that accumulate over weeks and months. This is the mechanism behind those gains, not mystery, not placebo. Cellular renewal followed by rebuilding when nutrients return. Growth hormone at 24 hours is dramatically elevated, in some studies several times above baseline, and the implications for muscle preservation could not be clearer. The fear of muscle loss during fasting is one of the most persistent yet most physiologically inaccurate fears in the entire wellness world. Growth hormone tells the body with total clarity, protect the lean mass, burn the stored fat instead. At 24 hours, this signal is not whispered, it is broadcast loudly across every tissue at once. Muscle breakdown is simply not happening in a well-nourished, healthy adult at this stage. The hormonal environment categorically does not support it. The opposite is happening. The body is preserving muscle with one of the most powerful signals it can produce while burning fat at a high, steady rate. These two processes are not in conflict, they were designed to happen together. The brain at 24 hours is running predominantly on ketones, and the neurological experience of this converts skeptics into practitioners more reliably than any argument. The calm people describe, the absence of mental noise, the focus that arrives without effort, the anxiety that fades for no external reason. These are not psychological effects, they are the direct consequence of a brain no longer riding glucose spikes and crashes. Many people reach 24 hours and understand for the first time in their adult life what their mind feels like when it is not chronically disrupted by constant blood sugar fluctuation. Please like this video right now if today's science is giving you a completely new understanding of what fasting actually does inside your body, because this is the content that deserves to be shared widely, and your likes genuinely help it reach more people who need it. So now let us talk about Stage 6, 48 hours after your last meal. 48 hours is where we leave common intermittent fasting practice and enter extended fasting, territory most people have never personally experienced. And the physiology here is extraordinary enough that it is worth understanding even if you never intend to fast this long, because it reveals what the human body was truly designed to do. By 48 hours, the metabolic state is completely stable and fully committed. Insulin remains deeply suppressed. Ketones have climbed well beyond their 24-hour levels. The brain now draws a large share of its total energy from ketones, and people describe the mental experience as a qualitative shift rather than a mild improvement. Not just clearer thinking, but a quietness of mind that feels almost unfamiliar in a world of constant blood sugar swings and neurological background noise. Growth hormone at 48 hours reaches one of its highest sustained levels of the entire sequence, in several studies rising 3 to 5 times above baseline. This continues protecting lean muscle with absolute priority while actively supporting tissue repair throughout the body. Growth hormone is not merely a muscle hormone, it is a repair and regeneration hormone, and its sustained elevation is one reason the body emerges from a properly structured extended fast with a degree of renewal shorter windows cannot match. The immune system at 48 hours is undergoing something that has drawn serious attention from longevity researchers. Older, dysfunctional immune cells that had been driving chronic low-grade inflammation are being cleared through autophagy at an accelerating rate. The immune system is being pruned, its worn-out components removed in preparation for regeneration when feeding resumes. The immune system that exists after a properly executed and properly broken extended fast is measurably different from the one that entered it. Newer, less inflammatory, more capable of responding to genuine threats. The liver at 48 hours has been burning its own stored fat for 2 full days. For people with fatty liver, this represents some of the most intensive therapeutic metabolic activity the liver will experience outside of direct medical intervention. Liver fat is declining, liver insulin sensitivity is improving, inflammatory signaling is dropping. Tell me in the comments right now if you have ever reached 48 hours in a fast and felt the mental clarity this stage produces. I genuinely want to know how many of you have been here and what it felt like. Now, an honest point about 48 hours that I always include: the electrolyte demands here are significant and cannot be ignored. Sodium, potassium, and magnesium losses have been accumulating for 2 days. The consequences of ignoring this are not trivial. Heart palpitations, muscle cramping, cognitive fog that people wrongly blame on fasting itself when it is actually mineral depletion, headaches, and fatigue beyond the gentle tiredness that is normal. Managing electrolytes during a 48-hour fast is not optional. Plain mineral water, a pinch of quality salt, and a magnesium supplement in the evening make the difference between a fast that feels clear and one that feels miserable. Cortisol also matters here. In a well-rested, low-stress adult, cortisol stays manageable at this stage. But in someone already carrying chronic stress and sleep deprivation, cortisol can rise enough to work against the fast, suppressing autophagy and protecting the very fat you are trying to lose. The body you bring to a 48-hour fast matters as much as the fast itself. A calm, rested nervous system cooperates with the fast. A chronically stressed one fights it. Subscribe to my channel if you want this level of honest, physiologically grounded education consistently without the marketing noise and oversimplification that dominates most health content online. Now, stage 7, 72 hours after your last meal. 72 hours, 3 full days. This is the deepest stage we are covering today and the most extraordinary, and I want to be very clear before I describe it. I am not presenting this as a target for everyone watching. I am presenting it as a window into the full depth of what human biology is capable of, because understanding this stage changes your perspective even if you never personally reach it. By 72 hours, the body has completed every layer of its shift away from external fuel. Insulin is at the lowest sustained level it produces outside clinical settings. Ketones are high and stable, supplying the majority of the brain's needs. The deeper systems are not merely running. They are running at full capacity with the stability that only comes from sustained, uninterrupted operation. Autophagy, which has accelerated since 12 hours, is now at its highest sustained rate of the entire sequence. But at 72 hours, something additional occurs that shorter fasts do not achieve. The combination of profoundly suppressed growth signaling and sustained activation of the body's energy sensors creates an environment that activates stem cells in the bone marrow, the cells responsible for producing every type of blood cell, including immune cells. The old, dysfunctional immune cells cleared during previous days are gone, the stem cells are primed. And when feeding resumes and growth signals rise again, these primed stem cells receive a powerful regenerative signal, driving production of new, younger, more efficient immune cells to replace what was cleared. This is the immune reset that researchers have documented. It is not a metaphor. It is a measurable shift in immune cell populations observed in clinical research, motivating serious investigation into applications for autoimmune conditions, chemotherapy recovery, and immune aging. The clearing happens during the fast. The rebuilding happens after, and the result is an immune system that is not suppressed, but renewed. The brain at 72 hours has adapted so thoroughly to ketones that returning to glucose requires its own recalibration. The clarity people describe here is often the most profound of the entire sequence. A stillness of mind people struggle to describe because it has no reference point in ordinary eating. The brain is running on clean, stable fuel with minimal oxidative stress and days of reduced metabolic noise to clear accumulated waste. The experience is neurological renovation, and it is real. If you are still here with me, comment below the word yes so I know how many of my beloved viewers remain attentive. I know these lectures run long, but believe me, I always aim to give full information rather than shallow surface-level fragments. Now I must speak with complete honesty about who should and should not be here at 72 hours. A 72-hour fast is not appropriate for everyone. If you are pregnant or breastfeeding, this is not for you under any circumstance. If you have a history of eating disorders, extended fasting can activate harmful patterns that require professional support. If you are on insulin or certain diabetes medications, 72 hours without food can cause dangerous low blood sugar that is life-threatening without medical supervision. If you have advanced kidney disease, cardiac arrhythmias, or significant heart disease, the demands here require clinical monitoring. If you are underweight or malnourished, 3 days without food burdens a system that needs nourishment, not restriction. But for a metabolically healthy, well-nourished adult, free of interacting medications, approaching this with proper preparation, adequate electrolytes, sufficient rest, and a thoughtful refeeding plan, a 72-hour fast is one of the most powerful biological reset experiences available. The preparation and refeeding matter as much as the fast itself. And this brings me to how to break a fast correctly, because breaking one incorrectly is among the most common ways people undo the benefits or cause real harm. After an extended fast, the digestive system is in a sensitized, low-activity state. Introducing a large, high-carbohydrate or processed meal can cause severe digestive distress, a dangerous insulin surge, and in extreme cases, refeeding syndrome. The correct approach follows a simple sequence I call broth, soft protein, normal meal. Start with bone broth or a mineral-rich vegetable broth, small amounts sipped slowly over the first 30 to 60 minutes. Broth restores electrolytes gently, awakens digestive enzymes, and provides satiety without spiking insulin. Then introduce soft, easily digestible protein, a little scrambled egg, soft fish, or plain Greek yogurt, providing amino acids and a gentle controlled insulin rise that signals the body to shift from repair mode into rebuild mode. Only after that is tolerated comfortably should normal healthy meals resume, protein forward, fiber rich, with minimal refined carbohydrates. The refeeding window deserves the same intention as the fast itself. Now let me bring all 7 stages together into the framework that matters most for the majority of you watching. While I have mapped biology all the way to 72 hours, the honest truth is this: consistency at moderate fasting depths produces far greater long-term benefit than occasional extreme fasting followed by constant eating. The sweet spot for most adults sits between 16 and 24 hours, practiced consistently, daily or near daily, within a lifestyle of whole foods, adequate protein, quality sleep, regular movement, and genuine stress management. It is the rhythm that heals, not the extreme. The practical guardrails are straightforward. Stop eating before bed, ending meals at least 2 to 3 hours before sleep, giving your liver and gut the overnight repair window they need. This single habit, consistently applied, improves fasting glucose, liver fat, sleep quality, and morning energy within weeks. Late-night eating is one of the most damaging metabolic habits in modern life, and eliminating it is often the single most impactful change available, and hydration throughout every fasting window is non-negotiable. When insulin drops, the kidneys release sodium and water follows, so mild dehydration develops faster during fasting. Most symptoms people blame on fasting difficulty are actually electrolyte-related. Plain water, a pinch of quality salt when symptoms suggest low sodium, and magnesium in the evening resolve most of the discomfort that causes people to abandon their practice unnecessarily. Now, if you have watched my full lecture through all 7 stages, I genuinely must say you have a remarkable attention span in this age of scattered focus, because understanding your own biology at this depth is one of the most powerful investments you can make in your long-term health. Please go to the comment section right now and tell me which of these 7 stages surprised you the most today, and the single best thing you are taking away from this lecture. I genuinely want to hear about your experience, and do check out my ebook on visceral fat and metabolism. You will find real value in it because I have packed 2 decades of clinical experience into under 100 pages, along with printable tracking material you can use and even email to me. I would be thrilled to see your transformations. That is all for today, but if you know someone in your life who is either afraid of fasting or doing it wrong and deserves the accurate picture, do not wait. Send this video to them right now. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with me until the very end. This was Dr. Mason Hayes, and I will see you in the next session.